So you've decided to do your own starch conversion, but you're maybe not sure which equipment to use. Let me go show you what I have. Hey everyone, Distiller Greyling here, one of your favorite home and hobby distillers. Yeah, today I'm outside, it's a beautiful day, still a bit of winter. I want to show you guys what I use for my starch conversion. On the previous video, you can go check it out. I went back to basics and explained how starch conversion works and all the necessary requirements you need to do to make sure you've got a good and proper starch conversion. Today I just want to focus on the equipment I have and when to use it and how I use them. So first up, we are talking about grain. So over there I've got some malted barley. Whether you use malted grain or unmalted normal grain, whether it's in a combination or one grain by itself, it's important to mill it. This here is my 2-roller mill. It's a plain handheld mill that I use to mill all my grain that I use. Sometimes I would remove the handle and put the drill on it directly. It works much faster and easier, especially if you want to do a 25 kg that I have there. Milling also helps to break up the grain itself so that you can get inside the grain where all those lovely sugars are. It also helps with the malted grain so that the enzymes can also easily do the job, come forward and start to liquidize your gelatinization phase. After milling your grain, you want to get your water into your pot and then get it onto strike temperature. When I started out with small amounts because I was not sure how to do starch conversion. I started with this 17-liter stainless steel bucket. I used to do it somewhat straight on the stovetop in the kitchen. Didn't worry about the external heating source, straight on the stove, and it worked wonders. I did from a 5-liter fermentation up to a 20-liter fermentation from this bucket. Now you might ask, how did I get 20 liters out of a 17-liter bucket? I would make the mash very thick, and then during the sparging phase, we'll get to that in a minute, I would then increase the volume and just loosen it a bit, or say dilute it a bit for my fermentation. After playing around with the 17-liter bucket, I got more confidence and I felt it was time to upscale. And I was looking for a certain capacity, and I was looking for a 100-liter pot. In comes this big one here. As you guys can see, it's a normal, straightforward pot. No drains, no false bottom, just the pot as it is. My aim for the 100-liter pot was I wanted capacity. Now I know there is some smaller pots that is much more set up. It's got a false bottom, it's got electrical heating from the side, even got drains at the bottom. There's no problem with that. For a 100-liter pot like this, I was struggling to find something like that. So I ended up just getting the pot by itself, but it works wonders for me. I do use it with gas. Got a 2-ring burner that I put the pot itself on bricks, put the burner underneath, and I heat it up like that. I only use the 2-ring burner at full blast when I'm heating up the water. As soon as my water is on strike temperature, I do decrease, and I even shut down one of the ring burners completely. I have seen pots on this size where they would be modified at the bottom with a heating element inside and a false bottom. So yes, you guys can do a lot with this pot. There is also some commercial, there is also some commercial equipment out there like Brew in a Bag, Grain Master, Grain Father. So there is a lot of things out there. So it doesn't mean you only have to have a 100-liter straight pot. Do what's easier for you. I like this one and it works for me quite well. Once you do get your liquid on strike temperature, that's at temperature just slightly above what you want to cook it. I'll leave some strike temperature calculations down the bottom so you guys can check them out. When you add your grain, be sure to stir it. So I've got this nice paddle. It is actually a bit small. You need to maybe have a bigger paddle at the bottom, but it works wonders for me. Nice and stainless steel, so I know definitely I can use it for a long time. I do also use a paint mixer that I put straight on the drill, and and it also helps a lot, especially when you're doing your gelatinization phase and that paste starts to get real thick. Your paddle and your arm is getting tired. So I would like to use this paint mixer straight on a drill, and it helps to mix my mixture and my whole pot of my mash very nice and easily. When you're using your normal unmalted grain and you've now cooked it for an hour and a half on the temperature you want, and it comes time when you need to add your enzymes, make sure you check your enzymes instructions to see on what temperature you need to add in and for how long they need to have contact with the grain itself. So first up, I use my alpha amylase enzymes. After that, I will then go to my glucose amylase enzymes. When I'm done with that, and now my whole mash has been gelatinized and liquefied as well, I do my starch test with my iodine. Works wonders. I can also see if I need to cook it some more or if I'm done cooking and I'm happy with that. I use temperature. I've got a small temperature gauge that I use with a longer extension to look at the temperature of my mash by itself. If I do not want to use the analog dial, I do got some digital ones as well. That's the normal ones that I actually use for my stills. I just unwind them, and sometimes I sort of put them inside my paddle itself, put it inside to see what the temperature is. And that's also a way where I can control it and see, especially if I need to cook it for that half an hour on a certain temperature, I can just monitor it very nicely. So yes, for normal unmalted grain, you do your starch test before you add enzymes, and you do your starch test before cool down. I use this, my cooling coil. Now this cooling coil, as you can see, is a very small one. It actually came with the 17-liter bucket, so that's why it fits perfectly in there. Obviously for the 100-liter pot, it is quite small, but it still works. I tend to use it, and what I sometimes will do is, as I put it inside and I use the drill, I would actually drill from the inside. As it is drilling, it's actually forcing more of the mash contact with the cooling coil itself. Cooling coil, I use with cold water from the bottom. The cold water will then circulate, and then the hotter water will come out the top. I use my normal cooling water hoses that I got with my still. It fits perfectly onto my cooling coil as well. So yes, that's my cooling coil. I will definitely maybe look for a bigger cooling coil that I can maybe permanently use with the 100-liter. But as I said, for now, I'm very happy with this one, and it's working quite well. So we have cooked our grain now, and we've added our enzymes for our normal grain. For malted grain like the barley I have there, you do not have to add enzymes. You can just use the malted barley as it is. You also do not have to cook it at a higher temperature. Go check out the video that's linked at the bottom of my Back to Basics for Starch Conversion. There I explain it very nicely. We've cooled down our mash, and now comes the point for fermentation. Now what I like to do is I strain out the spent grain, so I just want the watery bit of the grain mash that I've made now. So there's two ways that I do it. First up, when I had the smaller bucket, the 17-liter, I used to strain by hand. I would scoop out a bit of the mash, put it in a straining cloth, and then I would then dry it out by hand, get the liquid in, and then put that spent grain in a separate bucket. I would do that until the whole bucket is empty. Afterwards, I would do my sparging. Now sparging is that sense where your spent grain that you still have has still got a bit of sugar. Yes, you've got this nice sugar water that you've just strained out here, but that spent grain still has a bit of sugar. And then what I do is, depending on how much I have here and how much I want my fermentation to be, I would then start to sparge. Use normal clean water, and I would rinse that spent grain that I still have left to get all those sugars that's still clinging here and there to wash it out. Then I would go back and I would strain everything again into my bucket, and now I've got maybe a 20-liter that I'm happy with and that I want to ferment. For the 100-liter pot, I did it once and it was quite a long process. So that's where that guy comes in right at the end. This is basically a laundry clothes dryer. You would open it up and put your laundry inside and then dry it out. I took a chance and tried it, and it worked brilliantly for me. So what I would do, I would put the grain inside a bag, a normal mesh bag or a grain bag or just a closed bag, it doesn't matter. Put the grain in there. I would fill it up with about 6 liters, close it up and put it on. As it spins and that centrifugal force will push out the liquid, it will drain from the bottom, and then I've got all the spent grain inside. While my spent grain is still in the bag, I somewhat do my sparging then as well. As I do not know yet what the amount of liquid will be by the end, I use about 250 milliliters of water per sparging because I don't want to dilute it too much. That combination with my 100-liter pot and the malted barley works brilliant for me. So yes, this is my Spindel close driver that I use for my straining, drying and sparging. After I've done my straining and sparging from the small bucket, I will then use the 25-liter for small fermentation, or I would use the 100-liter blue drum for a bigger fermentation when I'm using my 100-liter pot. I hope this helps you guys to see what I use when I do my starch conversion. There is a lot of things out there, commercial, homemade, it doesn't matter. All that you guys need to remember is you need to make sure your grain is milled, get it cooked. Depending on if it's normal grain, get your enzymes in. If it's malted grain already, just make sure you cook it long enough for the enzymes to do their job. Get your grains strained. Now I have to add here that you do not have to strain your grain. I am looking for a neutral spirit or a neutral grain spirit. That's why I want to strain it out. If you're typically making a whiskey, a moonshine or a new made spirit and you want that flavor, you can leave the straining part out completely and you can ferment it with the spent grain if you want more flavor. But that's something for a different time. Now I just wanted to show you guys what equipment I use for my starch conversion. I hope it helps. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any more questions or any questions on equipment that I use, leave a comment down below. If you like the content that I give, please subscribe and follow me. I will be making more videos definitely. And as always guys, remember to be awesome, to be kind and be yourself.